We advise if the opinions and views of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Talk News TV and Politics Today. Your host for this evening, Herman Tiu Laurel. 2.5 years ago, we had an election, and it was a much ballyhooed election because it was supposed to be the first fully automated election in the country. The proponents and those who passed the law and those who ran the show, the COMELEC, were all praises for it. And they said it was so fast, but the question is, was it accurate? They also said, well, it eliminates human intervention, human error. 2.5 years later, we have found out that human intervention, human error, and maybe even human sin has been involved in the election that today we begin to doubt because of these questions about the conduct of the technology, supposed technology company itself, COMELEC, and the other players in the automation of our 2010 election. And even more complicated now is the 2013 elections, which the government just spent, because of COMELEC's recommendation and the final approval by the Supreme Court, the purchase of thousands of PCOS machines again. We'll get the technical explanation of what PCOS again later on for your review. 1.8 billion is being spent on it, and now we find out that there may be no source code for the machine for the 2013 elections, and that puts the new, maybe not so new, chairman of the COMELEC in a quandary. So I don't know where to begin, whether we begin with the political side of it or the technical side, but who was the first among us to know about the Smart-atic versus Dominion case in the U.S., which is now at the center of this revelations coming out? I think we'll start with Toti.
Yeah, thank you, Herman. Actually, the report was released in international media and was passed on to the civil society. And on September 11, 2012, Smart-atic International, together with Smart-atic USA, Smart-atic Holdings based in Netherlands, and Smart-atic Venezuela, filed a case against Dominion International with also Barbados registered, and also with Dominion Canada, Dominion Voting USA, on the grounds that there was a breach of contract. Now, Dominion is the proprietary owner of the precinct count optical scanning technology, okay, PCOS, which includes both hardware and software. Now, sometime in 2009, Dominion entered into a memorandum of understanding with Smart-atic International et al. To allow Smart-atic to sell, use, and modify, not really completely modify, but to sell and use Dominion products. And we know that in June of 2009, the COMELEC, through a competitive bidding, have granted an award to Smart-atic International on the use of the PCOS that was licensed to them by Dominion in partnership with the Filipino company Total Information Management. Now, that was for 2010. There are other issues about the 2010 implementation. They call it a success. We in the industry, we would prefer to say it was a blotched implementation. When you say blotched, meaning there were some glitches that needs to be covered up. And from the inaccurate transmission of the number of registered voters, numbering about 253, which was million, which was received by the Office of the Senate President for the Joint National Board of Canvassing, and the inaccuracy of the system date, as filed by Atienza and others, that there were other election results, that's not May 10, etc. Now there is this case filed by Smart-atic to Dominion claiming or charging them for breach of contract. And on October 17, 2012, Dominion came up with their counterclaim to those charges. And they have denied all the allegations. And in fact, they inserted in that, and they said that there was a failure on the performance granted by Smart-atic, because what was expected of Smart-atic by Dominion was that Smart-atic should conform to certain standards or industry practice known such as when you want to make some changes, you have to go to the proper notification, because the owner of the source code is Dominion. Now, the situation we're in right now is because we all know that Comelec has already exercised the option to purchase the PICOS machine used in 2010, and they demonstrated it in July 24 and 25 this year, 2012, at the Batasan, where they processed about 1,000 ballots. Is now in a quandary because effective May 23, 2012 this year, Dominion has already canceled that software license agreement with Smart-atic. Okay. So technically speaking, the Philippine government has purchased a hardware minus the software, which includes the counting, the canvassing, the transmission, and everything all together packed into that same product. Okay. So with this new development, all the petitioners that have submitted to the Supreme Court opposing the option to purchase are already requesting for a reconsideration in appeal based on this new evidence.
Okay. Okay, so Toti is president of the Philippine Computer Society, and any technical issues will refer to Toti. But it's important, I think, at this point to make it very clear to the audience that the parties involved are Smart-atic, which is a marketing company here.
Yes.
And I think
Smart-atic International.
Okay, there are several Smart-atics.
Right.
You know? And by the way, our title is not so Smart-atic, because atic is money and Smart-atic is the company. And they're not so smart because of this case, Pandora's box has been opened for them.
Right.
And there are also two elections involved here, 2010 and 2013,
yes,
involving both one machine.
Actually, the option to purchase was to cover in perpetua, which means it could still be used to 2016 and beyond.
Okay.
So now that's still in a quandary.
Okay. And so, again, Smart-atic, Dominion is the real
proprietary
owner of the
PICOS
software
technology
and the PICOS technology, not necessarily the machine. The machine can be different
the
types of machines.
as long as they follow certain specifications, configurations
okay,
subject to Smart-atic.
And Smart-atic owns the machine in 2010.
No, they
That's
leased
right.
it.
We leased it, or even Smart-atic leased it?
Smart-atic leased it to the Philippine government. Because
leased it too?
Yeah.
Where did Smart-atic get it? It's their own machines?
No,
or
they had it
also
manufactured because they had that,
Taiwan, if I recall correctly.
They had that agreement with Dominion, which is the proprietary owner of this PICOS technology, and allowed Smart-atic to have a manufacturer of that.
So the design of the PICOS machine is also Dominion?
Yes.
And not Smart-atic?
No.
Okay. Those will
because
be
if you check
later.
the added information, if you check the website of smartmatic.com, you would find out that there is no PICOS displayed in their website, but that different technology called direct record and electronic, direct recording electronic, which is a touch screen.
Yeah.
But when you log on to the Dominion voting systems.com, you will find out they're the ones that are claiming or holding the ownership of the PICOS technology.
So I'll just jump first to Attorney Bono Adaza, and he's acting as a counsel today. What he recalls of the law, the automation law, if I recall correctly, it required a company that really has the technology and the know-how and the experience. Am I correct, Attorney Adaza?
That's correct. That's what the law provided. As a matter of fact, that was one of the issues we raised in our case before the Supreme Court, that Comelec, in effect, violated the law by giving to Smart-atic team the contract. And the law requires that it should have experience here and abroad. And they have not demonstrated experience here and abroad. And the law was specific that the experience of Smart-atic in the arms election is not considered an experience. So without that, they really have no experience. So why did the government, or the Comelec specifically, give it to Smart-atic team?
Yes.
That was one of the issues we raised,
yeah.
and it remains unanswered up to this day.
Yeah. That's 2.5 years, and Supreme Court did not answer that petition?
There were several petitions filed here. If I remember very well, the petitions which were filed by the other parties were dismissed by the Supreme Court.
What about...
With respect to our petition,
Still live.
I've been waiting for the action of the Supreme
how
Court.
can the Supreme Court not act on something for 2.5 years? I really... And it has become a very bad habit for the Supreme Court to delay action until people forget about the case.
No,
Well, go ahead.
Mentong,
yeah.
that's not really surprising with the Supreme Court because before, the penalty for rebellion is only 10 years.
Okay.
The people who were charged with violation of the anti-subversion law, which the Supreme Court found out to be rebellion, stayed for 18 years. And the penalty is only for 10 years.
Okay.
They stayed for 18 years because the Supreme Court decided the issue only after 18 years.
Okay.
So it's not really surprising, you know.
Well, that's the wheels of justice in the Philippines. But I just wanted to make that very clear, that right off the bat on this matter of qualification of Smart-atic as a technology company, there are already serious flaws. Okay, let's go to Ado. Ado was one of the petitioners in the case calling for the annulment of the 2010 election because of a long list of enumerated flaws of the entire election process. So
that was
Ado,
the first
give
case.
us an update on this, please.
Well, basically, that was filed as case number 192561, filed in June 28, the year 2010. It was the first of the petitions filed before the Supreme Court. It was a petition for search warrant and prohibition, but in effect calling for the nullification of the entire 2010 elections. For various constitutional and statutory violations. We had a legal theory there that the Smart-atic conducted the elections of 2010, and that was very glaring.
Not the COMELEC.
Not the COMELEC. It appeared at all instances that the COMELEC was merely acting as the secretariat, as we have heard, and that what the COMELEC did was to outsource the 2010 election to a foreign corporation. And that is a non-delegable function, and at the same time the act of delegating such a sovereign act would constitute a violation of the Constitution. We also asserted various violations of statutes, namely the Omnibus Election Code, the Automated Election Systems Law, and the E-Commerce Act, basically on certain points. Primarily, the fact that when you vote, number one, instead of you getting a verification of the people you voted for, the voter only got a message of congratulations. You have voted in the 2010 elections. You know, so there was no receipt whatsoever, in whatever form, whether visual or written. The second thing is the COMELEC itself collapsed one of the safeguards minimally required by the AES law. And this was the use of the UV ray reader. Now, the UV ray reader actually...
Ultraviolet ray, no?
Ultraviolet. Actually scans the ballot to see whether it's genuine or void, and determines whether that particular ballot being inserted into the machine really belongs to that machine. And of course, the third aspect, the third strong aspect, was that by the COMELEC amending the law by way of collapsing through a resolution. Can you imagine a resolution of COMELEC virtually amending the AES law by collapsing the requirement for digital signatures and giving instructions on how to go around the minimally required provision?
Ado, you point out 3 specific violations of the AES law, Automated Election System Law, no? Regarding the safeguards. Now, my question is a technical one, so I go to Toti. Could these dysfunctions in the operation of the machine, which COMELEC made excuses for, could this be related to this suit of Smart-atic against Dominion? Because in the suit of Smart-atic against Dominion, it says Dominion failed to deliver fully functional technology for use in the 2010 Philippine elections. So that's a very specific. And then failing to place in escrow the required source code, hardware design, and manufacturing information. Can that be related directly to this?
Okay, good point, Hermano. Yes, they are directly related, but subject to interpretation by other parties. They have a way to reason out. But the way we look at it from the industry perspective is that the non-performance, you see, when you do implement a technology, let's go to that basic. As what Governor Bono was saying earlier.
Just use Bono because
Bono, right.
Homo Bono is so long.
Correct.
All right, what Bono was saying earlier. They do not own the technology. They do not have the expertise. They do not have the experience except Dominion. So when there were some alterations made, modifications made, for example, the layout of the ballot. Initially it was laid out as horizontal and they made it vertical. All right, so the coding for that program to read it lengthwise rather than crosswise would make some alteration. So, and to do that, it would be Dominion that has to do the modification, not Smart-atic, because they do not have the expertise in doing so. Now, the three citations that the group of ADO did, incidentally, the Philippine Congress Society also filed a case, not with the Supreme Court, but with Ombudsman. On the 29th of June, the same year, 2010.
So the day after?
The day after they did, but ours was with the Ombudsman. We charged, the Philippine Congress filed a charge against the COMELEC and bank chaired by Melo, Larrazabal et al., and also with other members of the Advisory Council, the Evaluation Committee, the PPCRV, etc., on grounds of criminal administrative charges. Now, we'll discuss that later in a little bit. But going back to your question, the disabling of the security measures, such as, for example, the UV ink. Incidentally, that responsibility was Smart-atic. Smart-atic got a side contract to provide the printing of the ballots, including the UV ink. Now, because it was a rush job, it was not, the quality, the resolution of the ink was not as required, and when they were scanning it, it did not, the rejection rate was high.
Again, this could be because they don't have the technology themselves. They might have subcontracted it again and so on.
Remember, there were some changes to the duration of the implementation. From one, originally, the manufacturer was supposed to be in Taiwan. They moved it to China. And then the layout of the ballot used to be horizontal. Then they made it vertical. And then because of the nullification of some candidates, right? In fact, during the presidential, there's one name, what's the name? Begins with letter A. That was never taken out because it's too late to change the printer. So all of this, and then come 7 days before election, there were the glitches in the CF card that they have to recall.
That's right, that one.
And because of that, because of the changes that was done, Dominion was saying Smart-atic should have conformed to the standard of what we call in the industry change management, which would change the specification into the design or the program. You need to get it properly documented with the developer. In this case, it is Dominion USA that does all the tweaking.
So again, the problem has arisen, and there is wisdom to the law that required the company that the Philippine government dealt with should have
the proper
competence.
Yeah.
And again, this is a marketing firm.
Correct.
And that did not have the real competency.
Correct.
And made do as they went along.
And they were charging Dominion failing to subscribe to the agreement by providing the needed support, the needed expertise, etc.
I'll go to Bono.
Yeah.
Bono, my question now is, does this reinforce the petition you filed 2.5 years ago? Can this be used as evidence?
Yeah, of course, they contain admissions, very glaring admissions, which we sustain the position we have taken, as mentioned by Ado earlier. You know, Mentong, to put it in very concrete terms, since the human mind works on conceptual level, the correct name of the PICOS machine has been designed very well and very descriptive of the function of the machine as seen in the 2010 elections. In the Cebuano-speaking regions, it's known as the TICAS machine.
What is
TICAS meaning the cheating machine.
okay?
Because Biliran, Agusan del Sur, Camiguin, Cagayan de Oro, Antipolo, everywhere, the TICAS machine was functioning. As a matter of fact,
The cheating machine was functioning.
yeah, was
Okay.
functioning.
Oh.
As a matter of fact, there is concrete and overwhelming evidence that in many places in the country, some people who were operating with the COMELEC, as they claim, were able to doctor the results of the election in many places. Ace Barbers was a victim. Uy of Cagayan de Oro was a victim.
But I'll ask all of you this question. How have they been able to get away with it? What I feel is that they keep feeding the people fait accompli. We protest, they just do it. And it passes. Another fait accompli, another violation, they just do it. Then it passes. And then in the pile-up of all these fait accompli, na overtake na ng mga events ang pangyayari.
There is an answer to that, Mentong. This is the Philippines.
Oh.
There is more fun in the Philippines in the way we are cheated, and we accept the cheating openly. That's why.
I think the people sitting in
I think
the people sitting in front of me never accepted all of it. That is why you are fighting. You filed the case.
Yeah, but as I've said in this program before, you know, it's only in the Philippines because the Filipino has a problem for every solution.
Okay. No, I think it's those in power that keep creating the problem to the solutions that Filipinos in earnest try to solve. Yes, yes. And so it's really the problem. We have 2 minutes before the break. Bono,
I'm telling you, Mentong, when I went to Camiguin, first trying to determine whether I should run for Congress or not, you know, everybody was telling me, hey, Bono, unless you can control the TICAS machine, you cannot win an election any place in the Philippines because the TICAS operators are already traveling all over the country selling the same TICAS machine.
Yeah,
okay,
go ahead,
as an
Toti.
update to that,
Yes,
that's what Bono was saying. Recently, Smart-atic, because the prodding of civil society, conducted a mock election in July 24 and 25 of this year. The result of which came out, let's say, for example, when they did do a manual and a PICOS count in comparison, in the list of candidates in the president, let's say about 50 names, there was one candidate that had 3 more than what the PICOS counted, and another candidate that had 3 less than what the PICOS counted. And because one had 3 plus, the other one had 3 minus, the way Smart-atic interpreted that gap is 0. So there was no error. But when you really add it, because there's a difference, there's a variance, you should say that's not 0, that's 6.
Yes,
So what it appears to us then, there is some inefficiency, incompetency as far as the program is still concerned. And that still has to be tweaked further. That still have to be repaired. And because of that, what Bono was saying, you might not lose because there was fraud. We just lose because the system is not reliable.
Yeah. Well, my summation for the first half of our show is that they claim they will erase human error, intervention, but aren't all these human error and human intervention by the company itself and by the COMELEC itself? Even if the COMELEC, let's say, committed all these by default, default is still human error, human intervention. But the worst part is the greed part of Smart-atic and maybe some other elements in among the players, human sin. Human error, maybe it's good intention, but human error, but if it's human sin, then we have a problem. We'll go back to Bono after this break.